California edition. I'm Brad Pomerantz. We are coming to you from the Cannon House office building in Washington, D.C. And look who we found. Los Angeles County Supervisor Don Knabe. What a tremendous treat and coincidence that you are here while we are here. Why is a supervisor from LA County here in the Capitol?
Well, first of all, I mean, it's one of our annual trips that we come back for on an annual basis, but obviously we have some very significant issues.
Right.
We've talked in your show before about these, but particularly like the Affordable Care Act, our Medicaid waiver, our Children and Family Services issues, probation. As you know.
Let's talk about one issue, if I may. I was recently speaking with Alan Lowenthal, member of the United States Congress, and from our interview, he immediately ran to a committee because you were testifying, and he wanted to be there to support your efforts to combat human trafficking, an issue that you have taken on for literally decades.
Well, I think it's an issue that obviously the hearings, it wound up lasting 2.5 hours,
Wow.
but it really covered not only the child trafficking, which we're trying to deal with there in LA County, but also as employer trafficking. And so they had myself and 2 other testifiers from the private sector. And the issue for us, obviously, is we need a national program of some sort. We're willing to be sort of the model for it right now, but what's transpired is that these young girls, you can't tell me that they choose that way of life.
No.
When you're 12 years old, you don't choose to be a prostitute. And so it's a very significant issue, not just in LA County, but throughout the nation. And I think what was really interesting is how many of the members really had no idea the impact or the size or the scope of the problem throughout the country.
And what's so interesting is there's this perception or presumption that these young girls are international. Somehow they've been brought into the country. But you've taught me that's not the case.
Oh, and I was taught too by I call my superwomen from the probation department that, you know, it's always one of those issues. It's a very uncomfortable issue to talk about, number one. Number two, you think it's from a third world country like in Thailand or someplace else. I mean, the congresswoman from Hawaii, she just had 400 Thailand young ladies in a container come into the, you know, that kind of, so you think of it in those terms. You don't think of these, you know, pimps in your backyard. Now, some of it's organized, some of it's independent, but now we're finding the gangs are getting involved in it because gangs have national connections as well as international connections. They can sell these young ladies 6-8 times a night instead of just one drug deal or one gun deal. So it's a very profitable center.
These young ladies may be and likely are Americans.
Absolutely.
Californians.
They're not, I mean, obviously there is foreign issues because of our access to the borders and the ports. It is an issue, but they're also very domestic. They're runaways.
So what are you hoping the federal government can do?
Well, I think what we're hoping for is, on the federal level, is a collaboration to give it more of a national significance, to really let these people know that we know what they're doing, and we're going to come get you, and we're going to make sure that you pay the price. And we're going to protect these young ladies at almost any cost. We got the money from the Foreign Affairs Committee as it relates to our collaborative courtroom, where we bring these girls in, dedicated courtroom to them, so that their pimp's not waiting for them out in the parking lot. We have law enforcement, we have health services, mental health services, we have total wraparound, and housing. The biggest gap that we're missing right now is the housing piece, because what's happening in many cases, we have to put them into the juvenile hall system to protect them. I mean, these girls have tattoos. They're identified by their pimp. And I testified today that, you know, one survivor told us that there was a group of girls that were forced to go to the desert outside of Los Angeles and watch one of their own get murdered and burnt to death.
I'm rendered speechless.
Yeah.
And you've been working to combat this for quite some time. We thank you for speaking to the Foreign Affairs Committee today about child trafficking. When we come back, I want to talk more about, you mentioned employer trafficking, and I'm wondering if there's an immigration element there. I bet there is. We're speaking with Don Knabe, member of the Board of Supervisors in Los Angeles County. For our viewers on HLN, thank you for joining us. For our other viewers, we'll be right back.